The Rams and Eagles have injuries, and it opens the door for the Green Bay Packers to make some noise in the NFC. We'll discuss that today here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
There's no lie being told right there. This is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the barbershop edition of Locked On NFL, and he is Kevin Ostriecher. He's going to ride solo, not solo. He's going to ride shotgun with me today here as we run through some of the top stories from around the National Football League. And remember, wherever you get your podcast, make sure you tap in to Locked On NFL and do not miss an episode. We are free to subscribe whether you watch or listen. Shout out to the everydayers who join us here every day. And if you're a newcomer, I'll give you a reason to come back. Let me give you the landscape. This is where we're going. We're going to start talking about teams that might have a shot because of the Eagles and Rams having injuries in the NFC. That's where we're at. The 49ers aren't dead. We're going to end up there at the end of the show, right smack in the middle. Yeah, we're going to the great Northwest and tell you why the Packers are poised to get to the top. But right at the very top, we're going to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. They may have dodged a bullet. My man Landon Dickerson is not as injured as we once thought, Kevin. So before I get to you, I'm going to play what Louis said about Landon Dickerson when he did get hurt, and then I'll give you the recent update.
All right, so Landon Dickerson getting an MRI on his leg injury he suffered yesterday at the Link for open practice that resulted in him getting carted off into the locker room. If they lose Landon Dickerson this year, or even for a long period of time, that is an underrated loss. He is so instrumental to the run game, to pass protection. One of the most underrated players in the NFL, in my opinion. You already have a new starter at right guard in Tyler Steen. If you got to start now like a Matt Pryor or Drew Kendall or Kenyon Green, that's a big downgrade from having Dickerson and Mekhi Becton in 2024. Obviously, Jeff Stoutland can elevate and, help these situations. He's the best offensive line coach in football, but that would be a big loss. For me, what I would probably do is move Steen to left guard. I would personally start Drew Kendall at right guard. I think they would play Matt Pryor, but hopefully this injury is not serious. It looked like it could have been an ankle, a high ankle sprain. Let's hope that's what it was, and there's no ligament damage to like an ACL or an Achilles.
Listen, they dodged the bullet. He won't be out that long. The MRI says just a couple of weeks, maybe even ready for week one. But they got some other problems there, Kevin. That secondary that they let some veterans go, they really, really thought they could just fill some guys in, and it's not going the way they thought it was earlier.
Yeah, it's not always that easy to do. And I know that the Eagles with the Super Bowl, they had a loaded roster last season. They were able to retool a little bit with their guys. But, sometimes you have to go through this where injuries will happen. And then if you're not as deep as you were the previous season, all of a sudden it's the replacement level players. They're not up to par. And we know that no team gets through an NFL season healthy. So you know that when you have to account for stars going down, the reason why there is so much parity in the league sometimes, and I know that, Kansas City and the Patriots have kind of put an end to that, but when there is parity, it's because teams like the Patriots and the Chiefs sometimes go through injuries, or there are other teams that stay healthy enough to get over the teams that are injured. And so it might not mean for the Eagles, and I know the Ravens are in this conversation, a best roster, people like what the Bills have built, the key for these teams is to stay healthy. And so I'm glad that the Dickerson update was as positive as it was, because it seemed like it was bad and that he was going to miss maybe the season. That was bad. But now I think you have an opportunity to get a guy back that's really important for your line, because like Louis said there, you don't have Mekhi Becton to lean on. You don't have some of that other depth that you had to lean on. It's going to be rookies, younger players, and some of these other guys you were able to sign. But the roster the Eagles had last year was perfect. The problem in the NFL is that your roster year to year changes, and sometimes it can change a lot.
That's right. And I mentioned they got those other problems too in the secondary. They're trying to replace C.J. Gardner-Johnson for one, and then Darius Slay. They lost those two guys. And that Rodgers kid they had, he's not there anymore either. So now you hope they can work their magic. And remember, It's only a few plays that separate these teams. The Rams were inside the red zone trying to score to make sure that they were the team that advanced past Philadelphia. It's just a couple of teams. Speaking of the Rams, they got their own issues. They're trying to get back to where they were a few years ago, and back being the operative word. My man Matt Stafford is banged up. If you listen to the Madman, Tyler Rowland this morning, you know that. Let's play it again, though, so we can get our spill on this issue.
And I mean, the second I heard epidural, my level of concern went from, I think he's going to be all right, to, hey, this could actually be a thing that prevents them from being at their absolute best. This could be the thing that means Jimmy Garoppolo is your starting quarterback against the Houston Texans on September 7th. And I'm not saying that's the end of the world. I don't think it is. I know he's Matthew Stafford and what that means and everything that comes along with it. But there's going to be some on-ramping to get back to NFL football.
I think somebody's food got done while they were talking right there. I heard a ding sound like a microwave, but I wonder what they eat. We ain't gonna worry about that. Back pain is terrible. You want to know how I know? I suffer from it. Very bad arthritis in my back. Sometimes I feel the pain in my chest and on the skin on my ribs. It is horrible. They're in trouble, man, when they start talking about epidurals in preseason, man. This is gonna scare me.
Yeah, you talked about the Eagles and that being a good update. This was not the update that you wanted to hear, I think, if you were a Rams fan. And it's crazy because, like, there are so many what ifs. And I'm not saying that, like, you know, we're still in week 1 of the preseason, or week 2, I guess now. There is time for Matt Stafford to show that, all right, hey, you know what? This isn't going to be a problem for me. We're going to work through it for the season. But the Rams being one of those what-if teams to me would be pretty tragic if we're talking about the roster that they have built around him. But obviously the most important position on the field is the quarterback spot. You know, you get Devontae Adams for what if Matthew Stafford can't be the Matthew Stafford that we know he can be? And I know that from Mike Sando, his NFL quarterback list here came out on Monday, and Matt Stafford was in the top 5 of that. He was the number 5 quarterback in tier 1 alongside Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Patrick Mahomes. So Stafford still, despite his age, is an elite level player in multiple key aspects of the game. But when you start having these injuries, things that can linger, things that might stick with you and be a little thorn in your side, it can have a bigger impact than you might think.
So when you start thinking about trade possibilities, the name Kirk Cousins comes up, Jameis Winston pops up. To me, guys that could be available. Should I say Shedeur Sanders at this point? Maybe. You just never really ever really know. But I think that team is built for a veteran. They can run the ball. They got a good offensive line. It should not be too hard for them to find. That sets up the next phase of today's show, and that is where we're going to talk about teams that can see this as a golden opportunity. Now, I'm going to mention Detroit only here because I wanted to kind of leave them out of conversations that had anything to do with injuries, whether they were benefiting from it or it was what was derailing their season like it did last year, because we got to give the benefit of seeing those guys try and get back healthy, right? So I'm not going to include them in this, but they would be right at the top of the list of teams that I believe can benefit from the fact that those top 2 teams have some injuries. We're going to skip right past Detroit just out of respect. We're going to leave them out of the injury conversation. But I am going to go up to Wisconsin and talk about Peter Bukowski's Green Bay Packers, man, because this opens the door for them to slide right through. And I'll get to Washington, too. We'll do all of that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is presented to you by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of year NFL kickoff. It's almost here, and that means football, fantasy football season is back in full swing, and this year Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, my guys with the playmakers and Showtime, man, we're going to get it on for about the 18th straight year. You're a first-timer or a veteran like me making your 1 millionth league, you should too on Yahoo Fantasy. To celebrate 20 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days through August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now it's time to get your league together and give the new mode a try. Give it all a try, man. It's more into the classics, if that's what you're into, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/locked on. Kicking the ball around the yard here with my main man, Kevin Ostriecher of Locked On Ravens. We're going to talk about the NFC today, Kevin. I know you always get excited when I bring up the AFC and start talking about the Bengals, Browns, and Pittsburgh Steelers. I ain't going to let you beat up on them today, all right? We are all about the NFC, and it's all about Peter Bukowski and the Green Bay Packers. Look, man, at some point, they got to make a move because they have a good roster. Their coaches, some of their coaches are getting pilfered a little bit and put on other teams. These dudes, man, got every opportunity right now with Minnesota having a quarterback that's a rookie, Detroit having all of these injuries from last year and having to regroup with new coordinators, and the two teams that I mentioned at the top struggling to find their feet here and get past the injury bug in the early season, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, the injury situation across. I mean, I get like we're talking NFC, all right. So we're not gonna go AFC. Even though I want to, I'm not going to.
That's why I said that. I got to pull Kevin back, man. Kevin will get in the NFC North. Now, the AFC North, I'm telling you, I always got to hold him back. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, but I mean, look, the NFC is such an interesting conference to me because I think there are teams all across you can think about. I mean, if there's a team that's going to be poised to take advantage of certain things, I think the Packers are in that conversation. I mean, I think they most definitely are. You have a guy in Jordan Love who I think is going to take another leap. They have wide receiver weapons. I know they're still working through things right now there, but they have talented playmakers. I like that whole NFC North division, if I'm being honest. Like I like Minnesota. I think they're good. They're going to have an opportunity. Obviously, it's going to hinge on JJ McCarthy. Can Caleb Williams take a leap? Like there are teams in that division that I think are going to make noise, but I think the Packers are a team that might not be the most flashy. Might not be the team that everybody's getting like all these headlines about. And Packers this, Packers that. But sometimes teams like it that way. They like to be kind of the underdog. So I think
that's right.
To me, are a pick.
That's right. Instead of having that bullseye on your back, let Peter Bukowski tell you how the Packers are doing in preseason so far.
Matthew Golden is going to be the Packers wide receiver one sooner than later. I'm Peter Bukowski, host of Locked On Packers, and here are 3 quick takeaways from the Green Bay Packers season opener at Lambeau Field against the New York Jets on Saturday night. It starts with Matthew Golden. He drew a pass interference call on Sauce Gardner, also converted on a 3rd down. The only receiver who could catch the ball. Apparently, Romeo Doubs, a couple times matched up with Sauce, couldn't shake him. It was Matthew Golden making the 1 catch on a Jordan Love throw. If you include the Malik Willis stuff, 4, 5, maybe 6 drops, depending on how you want to chart it. It's not great for this receiver room that now has Jaden Reed hurt. That has to be the second big takeaway. Jaden Reed seen in a boot before the game, and Matthew Golden was the one taking a lot of those slot reps. He's also the number 2 boundary receiver right now with Dontavian Wicks hurt. This is a room that is going to have to rely on Matthew Golden, quick, fast, and in a hurry. And the third quick takeaway is this defense has some work to do without Xavier McKinney. They allowed the Jets to march right down the field. I know that preseason is supposed to be vanilla time. Jeff Hafley was not vanilla. The linebackers were out of position. They weren't able to finish pass rush reps, even when they were able to get pressure on Justin Fields on the touchdown. They had Justin Fields dead in the backfield and could not finish the play. They need to sharpen up ahead of week 1.
Well, Peter Bukowski might have made me change my mind in saying that the Packers have a shot to get to the top of the NFC. But look, this is where I tell people all the time, you don't want to see how they make those hot dogs. In the preseason is how they're making the hot dogs right now, right? So, they're good. Go see how they make them, and you might not think so. So, I think they'll get it together. They have a lot of continuity coming back from last year on and off the field. I'm looking for the Packers to be one of those teams that can make some noise.
Yeah, I agree. And you're right. The preseason training camp is always time for these teams to work through things. And it's why I think JJ Watt had a post about this. A lot of other people had posts about this. Like, you are not going to get everything you need to get in the preseason done if you don't make mistakes, if you don't figure out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Still doesn't make the mistakes look good, still doesn't make them acceptable, but like you need to get through those to get to the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Like you have to get through it. So I think that for Green Bay, I'm all in on them this season. I'm all in on Minnesota as well. That NFC North, as I mentioned, has a lot of really intriguing teams in it. So look, I maybe am higher on Jordan Love than some. I think he, by the time the season is over, will be pretty universally regarded as a top 10 quarterback in this league. Like he has that talent to me. And with the rest of the guys, I mean, Josh Jacobs going into year 2 there and some of the other talent that they have, I think people are overlooking the Packers a little bit.
Yep, they are. We got 2 teams left to talk about. 3, and 2 of them are in the NFC East. I might surprise you with the second one. We already talked about the Eagles. We're about to talk about the Commanders because they've had a little bit of a turbulent offseason only because Terry McLaurin hasn't gotten paid. And maybe they needed to fix the run, but this still all comes back and all comes down to one person. And that's number 5, Jaden Daniels. Check this out.
Jaden Daniels' physical tools have really never been in doubt, but this year 2 leap is going to be defined by the game slowing down and his ability to self-correct in real time with his receivers. And the great news is in the second year of Jaden Daniels' development, we are seeing signs of that happening already. He's already showed some significant growth heading into his second season. He's talked about it. Coaches have talked about it. We've annotated it. The game just seems to be slowing down for him.
If the game slows down for that kid and he actually gets better, the sky is the limit.
Yeah. I mean, for guys like Jaden Daniels and heading into year 2, there are always talks of the sophomore slump, the wall that you can hit. You know, if you were a flash in the pan as a rookie, I don't think Jaden Daniels is that. You know, I think that he showed enough flashes during year 1. I mean, look, he literally led his team to the NFC Championship. You know how many veteran quarterbacks have not done that across entire careers? You know, Jaden Daniels did that in 1 year. And I think that does, and we've talked about it, you and I, Wig, it does prompt, I think, unfair conversation because now the next step from the NFC Championship is a Super Bowl. And if Jaden Daniels doesn't make it to the Super Bowl, everyone's going to say, but man, what a disappointment from the Commanders this season because they didn't go and they didn't improve. Where it's not fair because you know what winning is? It's hard. Jaden Daniels, it was a really big accomplishment he was able to do. You can't just expect. I said it with Lamar Jackson in 2019. He won the MVP as a second-year player, had 36 passing touchdowns. If we were talking about box score statistical improvement for Lamar Jackson in terms of touchdowns, he'd be a 75 touchdown per season player at this point. It's not realistic. So I don't want this year for Jaden Daniels to be, you know, maybe the Commanders aren't as good as a team or they go through injuries or Daniels is maybe a little bit worse than he was as a rookie. And then everybody says, look at that. Jaden Daniels is a bust. Look at that. We knew it. That's not fair because he has plenty of time.
We look at things through lenses that really don't. Those rearview mirrors we look through things, they don't tell a clear picture. Patrick Mahomes, after Tom Brady, has everybody spoiled like your quarterback's got to win the Super Bowl and win multiple championships. We actually deitize a whole bunch of dudes that won 1 championship. Steve Young. All right. Drew Brees. Peyton Manning won 2. I was about to say Peyton Manning, but he got a second one when he left Indianapolis. Aaron Rodgers. This is the thing, man. We're kind of looking at and moving the goalpost a little bit about how great quarterbacks, how many times they have to win. I think we've been a little bit spoiled by that. And it's just another one of those quarterback debates that gets out of control, just like the one involving Brock Purdy. Whether he's a game manager or a franchise quarterback. I tell you what he is. He's the quarterback of a team that a lot of us have written off for dead. I'm going to tell you right now in segment 3 why that might be a mistake. And we'll do it in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. Man, August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. All right, look, MVP, I think it's going to be somebody new. Even though I think Lamar Jackson is like your MVP every time he wakes up. I think it's going to be some new blood in that MVP race. It might be a dude in Atlanta named Bijan. We'll see if they can make the playoffs and he can get 2,000 yards like Saquon did. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning for your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. All right, kicking it with my dog, Kevin Ostriecher, here on Locked On NFL, where it is your team every day. We always thank you for making your first listen, talking about teams in the NFC that can take advantage of the teams that we expect to win this thing, being banged up and injured and not being healthy. That's exactly where the 49ers were last year, a team we thought who could win it, but got all banged up and was unhealthy and then didn't even make the playoffs. We might be moving a little prematurely when it comes to the 49ers, because every top 100 I saw, even the one that we did here on Locked On NFL, which, by the way, was the best one, had a whole bunch of 49ers on it, and they drafted well last year. Was yet to see whether they can draft well this year. Listen to the boys from Locked On 49ers talk about the 49ers.
But the 49ers, if you ask them, I think they feel like they're in a great place, especially offensively, because for everything that the defense is going through, and this is why you pay Brock Purdy the big bucks, for everything that the defense is going through, you still have George Kittle. You still have Christian McCaffrey. You still got Trent Williams. All right. You still have Ricky Pearsall, who's a first-round pick, a guy like Juwan Jennings. All right. Brandon Ayuk coming back from injury. You know, there's still a lot of pieces offensively that you put around Brock Purdy to where even if your defense isn't great, can you score enough points? And I think they're going to have to really lean on their offense during this time.
They expect Brandon Ayuk, it came out today, they expect him back by week 6. So that's really, really good news for them. They might have three defensive linemen starting on their defensive line. Are we discounting San Francisco and writing them off too fast?
It's so interesting because, like, the health situation scares you, like, you know, just based off of what it has been. Mm-hmm. But talent-wise on the roster, I mean, they still have guys. Like, of course, Debo's no longer there. You mentioned the D-line. Like, there's a lot of inexperience on that line. But, like, let's do best-case scenario here for the 49ers. It's like, okay, Christian McCaffrey plays a full 17 games this season. Brandon Ayuk comes back in week 6 and is that wide receiver one that they need. You know, the offensive line stays healthy and is good. On defense, you're able to stay healthy there as well. That's still a talented team. But I think, again, everyone's talking about the Rams in that division. Everyone's talking about the Rams. It's Stafford, it's Devontae Adams, it's Puka Nacua, it's Kyron Williams. Like, everyone's talking about them. And then you look at the rest of the NFC landscape, you know, with teams in the NFC North, you know, obviously others floating around in the NFC East as well, like Dallas. And we talked about Washington. Like, if it's not an NFC West championship for San Francisco, is it a wild card berth or a wild card spot? And if it's not that, then they're on the outside looking in again. And I think it does depend. I think the volatility of how San Francisco is discussed is more about how people feel about Purdy. I'm not as high on Brock Purdy as other people are, you know, but that doesn't mean that he's a bad quarterback. I just think that he's the right quarterback for San Francisco. Well, in today's quarterback landscape, you got to pay a quarterback a boatload of money. You're starting over at that position. So San Francisco did what they had to do. And I think we're overlooking them because of the health aspect of things. I think people understand they're talented. I just don't think people trust them to be healthy.
I think you're right, but I also believe the 49ers say, okay, we drafted and developed Charvarius Ward. Not drafted, but they developed him. We developed Dre Greenlaw. We developed a lot of these players that we weren't able to retain. You know, they got in trouble when they started going out in free agency and signing big-time defensive linemen and other parts that didn't really work. And I know they acquired McCaffrey and they acquired Big Trent Williams. I get it, but the thing is if they have drafted this year as well as they drafted last year, I think they'll be fine. And then they're going to sneak up on people because you know what? When you're least watching it, a team like that, as long as they're healthy and they roll those 4 or 5 big time players come around that corner and come out of that tunnel, that's a problem for anybody at any time as long as they are healthy. Now, my last team I want to look at is in the NFC East. I talked about Philly, of course, because they're at the top. I talked about Washington. I'm not talking about Dallas today. I'm going to talk about the Giants. And I did this because I always like to mix in some memories of the AFC North. Kevin Ostriecher, you know exactly what it's like to have a team that is only good on one side of the ball. and its defense. The New York Giants have a chance to be so good because of Abdul Carter, adding him to a team that has Dexter Lawrence and Thibodeau and Brian Burns. I'm telling you, man, this could be something special. And so far in the preseason, they look good. Listen to my home girl, Patricia Trainer, talk about the Giants.
For the first time in the Brian Dable era, the New York Giants topped the 30-point mark in the preseason. New York besting the Buffalo Bills 34-25 in the team's preseason opener. The Giants, who, as was thought to be the case, played their healthy starters in this game, got scoring drives from all four of their quarterbacks, three of them being touchdown drives. Starter Russell Wilson, the only one of the quarterbacks not to lead a touchdown drive, did manage a solid opening drive, running 12 plays, and the drive resulting in the first of three Graham Gano field goals of the day that went for 50-plus yards. Rookie Jackson Dart made his NFL debut with a very solid showing, finishing 12 of 19 for 154 yards, a team best 8.1 yards per pass attempt, and one touchdown. Dart also added 24 rushing yards on 3 carries, the rushing yardage total being a team best this week.
Hey, man, if Jackson Dart can be the future, that might save Brian Daboll's and them's job. Russell Wilson's going to get all of the snaps that really, really matter this year. And then if they need some help, Jameis Winston is there if they don't trade him away. But Abdul Carter, I saw a cut-up, man, of 6 plays from him, and I'm thinking like, oh, my God, is he really, really good? They got him lined up at stack linebacker, man, but then he's pass rushing. They're playing him just like Dallas plays Michael Parsons. If he's that good and Thibodeau has the kind of year he had a couple of years ago and Brian Burns does the things that we think he's going to do and Dexter Lawrence just be Dexter Lawrence, this could be a team that wins with defense first, like the Broncos did last year, and get themselves in a nice little position in the NFC to surprise some people.
Yeah, I mean, just positive trends you can hopefully take away from this season for the Giants. I mean, I don't think, again, anybody expects them to best Philly in the NFC East and go win that division that way, but again, like they've built up a nice group of guys on the defensive side of the ball. Would have still loved for them to have Saquon Barkley, but of course that is now in the past. I think they could have been in a lot better spot if they just ponied up the money and paid him. But I think that the Giants are an intriguing team. I wonder if we'll see Jackson Dart at all this season. I mean, if everything goes well for him, I guess the answer to that would be no, because that would mean one of Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston was playing good football for him. But, you have Malik Neighbors there, which is really exciting and intriguing. Offensive line, you kind of got to work on that a little bit. But, I mean, the Giants are a team that I don't expect to be, like, great, and I'm still not a Dable fan. But I think the talent is unquestionable when you talk about some of those guys on that defense.
Yeah, I'm going to do the same thing with the AFC. But I ain't going to mention none of the good teams because all y'all are healthy. I say y'all because y'all are healthy. I wish somebody else would do this so they could include the Jaguars and people don't think I'm being biased about that, right? Look at you. Look at that look on your face, man. I know what it is.
I know.
A little inside joke between me and my man Ostriecher. I'll tell you what, we're going to have to make us a wager. But before I do that, I'm going to make Locked On Bets my second listen for the day. That's right. My man Lee Sterling and Kevin Rogers, they're betting experts, and they have daily Major League Baseball locks and can't miss football futures. Find Locked On Bets on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. You can find Kevin Ostriecher over on Locked On Ravens every single day. He's covering a winner. It feels good, feels different. I told everybody Mike Green was going to be good, and they won't listen to me. And now he's up there in Baltimore doing his thing. Kevin's in Baltimore too, man. Make sure you check him out. Check out Tyler Rowland early in the morning too with Locked On NFL. The Madman will be here to wake you up with a double shot of espresso. And I'll be back in the barbershop tomorrow. Thank you again for spending 29 minutes with us today. We appreciate your time, and we know that it is of value to you, and we thank you that you spend it with us. We'll see you later.